Everybody. We are going to look at lesson 9 from unit 3. This has to do with something we call the triangle proportional or proportionality theorem. So we've seen this type of figure before where we have sort of this larger triangle that also kind of has a smaller triangle kind of within it based on the way that it's created. So we have this point B, we have two parallel lines, which this is very important, right? And then we have lines sticking out from it. Well, long story short, what they found is that when we look at this, there's actually some steady proportion between the parts of um, these triangles. So if we look at our small triangle, let's label this side 1, or let's label it A. Let's do A and B. Okay, label this A and B. That this is going to be in proportion to these sides as well. And so because as it goes this way, right, we see a certain distance, that distance is going to relate to the distance to the next parallel line the same way that we see on the other side. Okay, so this can be used to solve various problems or to kind of examine missing parts in these types of triangles. Uh, Let me show you guys kind of what I mean exactly here. So if we were to have this side BF, okay, so BF, it is going to compare to FC in exactly the same way that BG compares to GA. Okay, so basically the relationship between the individual parts of this figure will hold regardless of which side we're on. Now, this is only going to be true if we know that we have parallel lines here. Okay, so that way the angles are going to be the same around the parallel lines, and because of that, we're going to have this kind of controlled distance. So again, what we're seeing here is a formula where we can set two ratios equal to each other. From there, we can use the uh, cross multiplication or some other solution styles from there. But again, basically, if you look at this, there's like kind of the left side number 1, the left side number 2, and then sort of the top side 1 and top side 2. Right, so that's kind of how they are comparing to themselves. So how can we kind of solve some problems with it? So we're going to look through 4 different problems. They're going to increase the difficulty each time. So the first part is find VZ, right? So VZ will be this section here, right? We do not know what it is, and that's what it wants. But we do know all of the other parts here. So one of the things we can do, as long as we keep ourselves in order, is I'm going to look at the top. I'm going to look at 36 and 18. So if we did 36 divided by 18, okay? So 36 goes first, 18 goes second, okay? Then I'm going to do the question mark is going to be first, and the 13 is second. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But you got to go in that particular order. If you mix up the orders, it won't work very well. So now what we're trying to do is figure out what value would this question mark have to be. And again, there's a couple of different solutions here. But if you notice, 36 divided by 18 is the same thing as 2. This makes this problem a lot easier than having to go through the cross multiplication, just recognizing that. If you need to do cross multiplication, that is fine also, but again, not necessary here as the numbers are kind of convenient. So what number is going divided by 13 makes 2? Well, this is just 2 times 13. So our question mark here is going to be 26. Okay. So again, this makes sense if you think about it. 26 compared to 13, which is double 13, is the same as 36 over 18, which again is double. Okay, let's look at another example here, right? So this problem says find GI. So GI is actually this entire length here, okay? That's the entire length. So with a problem like this, what I would do is I would find this missing piece here. Okay, I would find IH. Okay, do this first, then just add 15 to it. Okay, that would be the way that I would go about this, is just to add 15 at the end. So I'm going to start. So again, GI is this. Remember, you're solving for GI. Okay, so I'm going to start with this unknown here, right? So if I compare that to 15, right, on its side, that's going to be the same as 22 over 33. Okay, now if you notice this, 22 over 33 is the same as 2/3. It's going to make this a little easier to work with, right? And so if you did cross multiplication here, you would get 3 question marks is equal to 2 times 15, which is 30. And you could get that the unknown is 10, right, by dividing by 3. Now, this isn't the end, right? We still have to consider that it's going to be 10 plus 15, right? This is what adds a little complication here, right? We've got to add, because we're looking for GI the entire length, we have to take this unknown piece like we solved for in the first problem and just realize, hey, I just need to add on that extra piece to get the whole thing. All right, so again, another ramp up for this problem. It says find VW, right? So we're trying to find this length here. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I figure out the rest of this, right? So what are the other parts? How do I do this? All right, so there's a couple of different methods you could take for this, but if I know that this entire length up here at the top is 72, and this length is 48, that means that this length is 72 minus 48. Okay, so that's whatever the difference between those two numbers are, 72 minus 48, this is 24. Right, so I can start here and say, hey, okay, well, this relationship here is 24 to 48, which again, if we say 24 to 48, that's the same thing as 1/2. Right? So again, if you can simplify problems while you're working on them, you're going to save a lot of time. So now, how does this compare to the rest over here? Okay, well, what you can do, there's a couple of different methods to this, but my recommendation here is that if you think about this as 2 to 1, okay, so this is just consider this for a second. If you think of 2 to 1, right? This side has 2 pieces, this side has 1. Really, that's 3 pieces, isn't it? Right? We have 24, 24, and 24. Right? So there's like 3 pieces here. Okay. Now we don't really need to break the 48 into 2 pieces, but because there are 3 pieces up here, there's got to be 3 pieces down on the bottom. So again, like kind of think about this as 24, 24, and 24. Right? So we had 24 and 48. Well, if I break the bottom part into 3 pieces, this makes things a little bit simpler, right? So 51 divided by 3 makes 17, right? So there are pieces that are 17s, 17 and 34, okay? Again, this is kind of the idea here that I know, because this has to be, again, 17 pieces, I know that this relationship has to hold because of the 1 at the top. So again, the VW is going to be 17 in this case, because we could compare 17 over 34 would be the same thing as 1/2. And it's a little bit of a different style here. But again, if we're missing some pieces, sometimes you're going to have to kind of look at what they're giving you, and kind of how the relationship works. But a lot of this problem stems from this being a 1 to 2, which is a pretty easy ratio to break things up in. Okay, last question is going to have us use algebra, right? So this time we're going to have to actually do a little solving here. But again, the problem solving style is still pretty much the same. So if I look here, I've got all the information I need to kind of go forward with this. So I'm going to do 6b. Whoever put 6 and b together is not our friend. 4b minus 6. Again, they put another 6 in here. They just look like b's. It's not a really nice thing to do. And then we're going to have 38 over 19, right? Okay. So if I know that this is 38 over 19, I could go ahead and cross multiply, right? But these are going to be big numbers. 38 over 19 is the same thing as 2. This greatly simplifies how I approach this problem. So 6b over 4b minus 6 has to equal 2. I'm going to cross multiply at this point. Let me switch my color here, right? This is going to mean that 6b times 1, which is 6b, is going to equal 2. Now, this is the important part. We have to, because the denominator over on this side has 2 terms to it, we need to place a parentheses around it and turn it into 4b minus 6. We're then going to get 6b equals 8b minus 12. Okay. So again, we distribute from here. This is just when we have a number times, or we have a value times a binomial here like this, we multiply it this way. So we're going to go ahead and try and simplify this. I'm going to subtract 6b from both sides. This is going to make 0 is equal to 2b minus 12. I'm then going to add 12 to both sides to get that out of the way. And we're going to get 12b equals 12 equals 2b, which means that b is going to equal 6, right? So again, this is a much more elaborate problem because we have to do quite a little bit of algebra here. But again, it's the same setup, right? We set 2 equations equal to each other and go from there. And we can finally check our answers here and see if we plug b in for 6 in for b, another 6, we're going to get 36 here. And this is going to be 24 minus 6, which is 18. Again, that's going to hold the same ratio, 2 to 1.